Hey everybody, it's Jillian. Yeah, pretty crazy last couple days, huh? Well, I've been focusing on a lot of different things. I've been focusing on the merits of Jilly juice and then mixing in with understanding the points of view of the naysayers. Been studying the naysayers and then looking at some of their gripes on why they don't like me or the juice. And some people have said and been a little bit critical that they think that I should not be focusing so much on the haters and all of that. And there comes a point in time where you do have to address the controversy around any subject matter. You really do. Now, yeah, I could keep sticking my head in the sand and pretend they don't exist, which I have done for over a year and a half since I segued from the 66,000 person group that grew in less than a year to then a private website where it is definitely an echo chamber in there for a reason. Since I've done that, I have kept my world relatively peaceful. I haven't been going into any of the debunking groups. I haven't been mixing in and figuring out, what people are saying on Twitter. I haven't been going on different podcasts and debating my protocol with other people because it was counterproductive. It would have been counterproductive even at the time that I was invited. It would have been counterproductive last year because it would have gotten in the way of my research. It would have gotten in the way of any new ideas I wanted to formulate. And when you're trying to create something and understand the finer points of your creation, it doesn't serve anybody well to go get distracted in the drama. But like any kind of balance, okay, remember we're talking about balance. There is a way to balance out acknowledging the haters and the naysayers in a constructive manner, but still yet keep on with the same trajectory as far as getting the information out, getting other things done. It's like juggling a lot of different balls and knowing when to put this ball aside and focus on this ball, but not too much focus on this ball, ignoring this ball. Okay, this is about balance. This is about figuring out how you can acknowledge, and then also when you do acknowledge some of the negative stuff, what's that return on your investment when you do entertain the negative activity? What's the return? Okay, well, understanding and seeing how could this scenario, let's say the death of that hospice patient, how can we now rip apart that scenario of someone's perspective based upon an article and then poke holes in their investigative journalism and then give you another perspective to then where you can go into your personal life and then you can start seeing the connections, because everybody has dealt with somebody in their life that is dying of cancer, disease, chronic illness. There are very universal characteristics when it comes to cancer patients and what they eat and drink towards the end of life. And so me actually now finally looking at the articles, acknowledging the naysayers, pointing out their holes in their thought process when it comes to demonizing salt out of a recipe, it has to come out, because now it'll give you guys some kind of ammunition and more examples of how to explain the jelly juice, how to take the information and the holes that I've poked in this investigative journalism's around that hospice patient's death, looking at some of the the factors that also contributed to his death. Now, I know people are like, well, why do you keep belaboring the whole thing with that guy? And I'm like, because that guy is being tied to Jilly Juice in a negative context. You cannot, if you have an invention, whatever it is, and someone is trying to discredit you with lies and mischaracterization, it is so up to that person who invented their protocol or invented their invention, whatever it is, to defend it to the very end. Because if you don't, then you lose credibility no matter what. You lose credibility with your own audience, and then you also lose credibility with people who are trying to discredit you no matter what. So right now, I'm learning the balance now. Now that I got most of my science figured out for the most part, there's always new things that will come up, and I will always entertain new ideas. But I also need to acknowledge some of the ignorance around chemistry and the misunderstanding around Jilly Juice, the wrong focus as far as the salt and even the water, and start questioning academia and the reporters. How could you have not have known that J juice is a probiotic? Okay? How could you not have known this? How would you even try to tie me to a hospice patient's death when this person was found with pineapple juice towards the end of his life, actually like not too long before he passed away? Okay? And then also obvious posts on the person's timeline shows that there was a some kind of code in the ER from a prescription drug 2 weeks before his death. So it's one of those things that I have to go and rip that shit apart, because my reputation, my Jilly Juice is on the line. Now I know that I'm not exactly, during this healing process, as you've seen, never been very diplomatic. No, I don't like debates. No, I don't. I like echo chambers. Absolutely. Because I've been blocked from sites when I give my point of view from people who are in their own echo chamber, and they've blocked people that are giving an alternative point of view in their own echo chamber. They could say, oh yeah, you were spamming, but here's the thing. No, I was giving you a different point of view to then give to your audience. However, your audience, whoever it is, can be looking at my YouTube videos, can look at my Facebook, but I have blocked people. I block a lot of people. And part of me, it's a little evil, I guess, because now they won't have access to another of this information unless they go to my YouTube, which means they'd have to go find my YouTube, because that's free for everybody. Nobody's blocked off of YouTube. I disable the comments, but then they would have to really want to find my info, and YouTube is really the place where everybody in the world can see. Facebook, I just pick and choose who I want to have access to my Facebook lives. And then if a person truly wants to know my info and hear my perspective, they can go to YouTube. So partly of me, it's me being a little bit evil and saying, you know what, I'm not going to give you access to this information. You can go stay in the Matrix and play the Matrix game and have a predictable life. So yeah, there's a part of me that's a little bit evil in that way, because I don't like what people say. And I admit it, I'm human. I react to my environment. However, my little insurance policy on that, so I don't go to hell, if that's what people believe, is that I have a YouTube account where they can go and see my Facebook lives and make their own determination what they choose to believe based upon two different sides of the story. Okay? So, you know, echo chambers are amazing because it reinforces concrete examples without all of the distraction. Given that my information is not under lock and key, everybody has access, if they want to my discussion forum. Everybody has access, if they behave themselves, to my Facebook lives. Everybody has access to my YouTube, and everybody has access to my book. And my book has been pirated and posted on somebody's blog site content, which is illegal, completely illegal. So it's not like this information isn't being presented to the masses, okay? So I will not entertain any debating because I've already considered, I came from the mainstream. I've already considered pretty much everything. Now, there's probably areas, okay, that some people have introduced to me as far as the healing energy world, which I'm okay with as long as it's being married with J juice. Not so much by itself, using healing energy solely by itself or herbs solely by themselves, because I've justified it why it is we don't take negative protocols solely, because that would then make an overabundance of antibodies that would then put you over the edge potentially relative to what you bring to the table. However, it's not like I'm entertaining an alternative thought process to where it totally discounts J juice. No, I want it to have to where it's able to integrate J juice in such a way that it complements J juice, not negates it. So when I talk about echo chambers, I talk about I don't want anybody negating J juice, because when you negate J juice, you don't fully understand what it's all about. And if you don't fully understand, then it's time for you to be silent, not debate and ask so many crazy questions, and watch my videos, read the book, and then there is a discussion forum on my website to where you can ask the questions. But that would take, you know, an actual effort on that person's part to then put their money where their mouth is, which means that it would show premeditation. They bought the book, they sent us a login, or they sent us a receipt, we give them a login and password, then they have to go and figure out how to navigate the site. That's a premeditation. That says that you really, truly, really want to know the answer. So that's why I don't go on any more podcasts with naysayers. I will not debate. I will not allow anyone to debate, and I will block I will block everybody if I have to, but I won't. I'm not going to block everybody. There's certain people that understand this, or there are smart people that won't say anything, and they'll just observe and then have their own little corner on the internet and talk their smack. And I'm perfectly fine with that. It's when you talk your smack and you do it illegally is where I have a problem, because free speech is fine, but there are consequences and there are laws around certain types of free speech. People think that you can just say anything, do anything. You know, in America, no, there are consequences to certain types of free speech. And when you publish things, there are consequences to what you publish. So, you know, you have to understand the world that you live in before you start, you know, saying, oh yeah, I can say whatever I want. I have an opinion. It's rule of law. Okay. So, you know, I love my echo chambers, because then someone gets the pure information. They don't get all the back and forth, though sometimes I will, actually most times I do acknowledge some of the obvious questions within whatever monologue I say or do, so that way you don't have to ask the questions. But people say, oh yeah, you know, you should ask, people should ask questions, it should open up a communication. You know, I mean, there are sites out there like CNN, Fox, even some groups that will just allow open discussion over everything. And I did that over in the holistic allopathic or the holistic groups. There's open discussion on what is the best herb or what is the best antibiotic. And it was just like, it was all kind of the same stuff. It was like they were saying, you know, this herb, which does the same thing, gives you an antibody, is better than this, and this herb is better than this. And it's just like, it was really a waste of time. It really is about market share. How are they marketing the same elements in a different way to grab market share? And that, you know, that ceased to become really interesting anymore. And I realized it was just an exercise of futility. So that's when I realized that there was a lot of things that were very similar, if not the same, in the allopathic holistic. And so that's why I got away from it. But, you know, when I posted that article about kratom, okay, how like a bunch of people died from kratom, and then somebody came on there who's a kratom proponent, was like, nobody died from kratom. Well, here's the thing. When you take antibiotics, okay, when you take antibiotics for any specific disease, whether it's an opioid addiction or cancer disease and chronic illness, yeah, you brought to the table major issues. But when you take in an antibiotic, And I guess I could even say the same thing about vaccines, but then the vaccine would be no different than a pathogenic person. So those two would have to be conjoined. So if we're going to, well, I'm getting off on a tangent real quick. Okay, so nobody died from kratom, this person. Yes, when you take in an antibiotic, and even though you brought to the table all these different issues, taking in another set of antibodies, more antibodies to compound your already imbalanced system to where it would cause more agglutination, yes, that specific antibody or that specific product, that pathogen that caused the antibodies would be what would put the person over the edge. And so, yeah, if they did a titer test and they saw that the last antibody acquisition from this kratom product was what put him over the edge, that could be very well a good argument for correlation equals causation. Okay? That would very well be a good argument. So now let's segue it into the vaccines. Now I have some people who are anti-vax, and yes, I was anti-vax. Now I'm more like, I understand the reasoning behind it. You can't legislate morals. However, vaccine is a representation of a pathogenic person who has mutated the disease. So what does the government do? They take an inactivated type of form of it, I guess. Yeah, that's what they say. An attenuated virus, okay? And they inject you, and yeah, it has mercury and it has other type of elements. Remember, you have an elemental composition of the human body. You have mercury as part of your composition. So no, it's not poisonous. But I know some of you will disagree. But listen to this. You're taking in a pathogen, a bacteria, to then create antibodies, so it stimulates your immune system to then protect you when you do get exposed to someone who is pathogenic. So if you want to hold people, or if you want to hold vaccines accountable for potentially causing autism, okay, which has viruses and bacteria to create antibodies, then a person that is sick, that got your child sick or your grandma sick or somebody sick, that person could also be held accountable for causing somebody's death or causing somebody's autism. See, what's good for the goose is what's good for the gander. So if you want to hold the vaccine companies responsible for causing autism, then you got to hold all of the mutated people who are so sick, spreading their disease over everybody. You got to hold them accountable too. If you're going to hold Monsanto accountable for all of the different elements to then trigger somebody's lymphoma, then we guess we got to hold everybody that's sick out there, that's walking around coughing on people, knowingly being sick, hold them accountable for triggering somebody's disease. Okay, this is not like, we pick and choose who it is we want to hold accountable and not really put everybody in the same category, because it's all the same stuff. Your immune system is based upon your exposure to pathogens. Okay, and so when you're exposed to negative elements, when you're exposed to bacteria and pathogens, guess what? Your immune system can create antibodies to protect you. But then if you have an imbalance where you have too many antibodies called agglutination, and then eventually down the road, depends on what you bring to the table, it'll shut the body down. How we can then understand what that actually means in a different context is if you take an AB positive blood type and give a blood transfusion to an O negative person, guess what? Too many antibodies will agglutinate and shut the body down. That's why they don't do transfusions with AB positive to O negative people. It would kill them. Okay? So yeah, I don't even know why I got on this subject matter when it comes to echo chambers. But Jilly Juice is an echo chamber to understand why it is that we have government to kind of be that balancing force for all these different belief systems. And Jilly Juice, Jilly Juice has you understand the whole point of, vaccines, yes, but also understanding, the three things that kill you and keep you alive, and what it is to expect on it. So I wrote this thing today about echo chambers because I'm reading some of my naysayers' critiques of just how in which I run my groups and run my page. And, you know, they don't like the fact that I don't have open conversation, but I can't entertain so much of that back and forth. It's just too much. Either you choose to understand or you don't. I mean, I can't force anyone to understand this. So, and I'm trying to figure out why I got into the vaccines to begin with. But I think it came from the fact that there are certain areas that I've already studied and I've already focused on, and I already know that's not the direction I want to take. And it means that I have considered it. I don't know how, you know, this definition of echo chamber, I mean, let's read the definition real quick. I get on so many tangents and I forget the actual point that I'm making because there's just so much to all this. I mean, this is insane. Oh yeah, that's right, like the Bruce Wilmot and what he died from and all that. That's right, because I'm trying to bring it back to what a person would die from. Then how you guys, let me see something. But an environment in which a person encounters only beliefs and opinions that can coincide with their own, so that their existing views are reinforced and alternative ideas are not considered. So they're making an assumption that people who are in an echo chamber never considered other ideas. And that is completely not so. We have considered pretty much everything, and we've chose to believe this. And it's not for me to say that the people who don't believe in what I'm saying haven't considered other ideas, and they choose to believe that. So, you know, everybody needs to be in their own echo chamber. They do. And if somebody, and it's not like we're living underground, cutting off all the information from everybody in the world. No, everybody can see my stuff. So what I've been, you know, focusing on, is why a person would die and poking the holes in all the different stories and then giving you guys another perspective on a person's death. Because I'm, you know, my credibility, my reputation is on the line. And so I must fight. But I got to fight to have to be a constructive fight. It's not just a fight just because, which people are doing all over the internet. They're just fighting just because they get hits and clicks. You know, they get ad money. They get possible Patreon contributions if it agrees with somebody else's, you know, stuff. You know, there's a lot of people trying to grab market share because of controversy. And I understand that's how it works out there. Everybody rides on other people's coattails. It happens. But how you ride on somebody's coattails is the difference. And that's where the law comes in. So, you know, I'm doing my thing. Okay. I really don't have a lot to say today, except the fact that I am acknowledging some of the critiques about Jillian runs an echo chamber. And you know, when I'm blocking and I'm kicking people out of groups and this and that, absolutely. You either agree or you keep silent. And if you don't agree, then who cares? I don't really need to know your point of view, because I already considered it. And who are you? You know, why it is that I talk about suing people is not because they disagree. Oh no. It's because the way in which they do it. Tying me to somebody's death is a complete falsification of the facts. It's riding again on the controversy, trying to take market share yet once again. And that is illegal if I can prove it. Okay? And since I submitted the tests of my juice to the food lab and then came back that it's a probiotic, everything that's said about me as far as tying me to anybody's death should have been retracted a long time ago. Or another article written saying, hey, turns out that the juice isn't poisonous. Well, duh. But then when you look at some of these articles, they purposely left pertinent information out. So, you know, this is why I'm doing the fight, is because I want to show you guys what the media does to spin stories so you don't believe everything you read. That's really essentially what my whole point is. is to show you guys there are people that will spin stories to justify their own agenda, to line their pockets, because all they can do is feed off of somebody else's hard work. That's exactly what it is I'm trying to prove right now. Okay? And so, you could say, oh yeah, that's, you shouldn't be focused on this, but I don't really care. This is not your work. This is my work. You're benefiting, all of you are benefiting from my hard work in so many ways. So anyone telling me that I shouldn't focus on this really doesn't understand what the hell I actually went through the last couple years. And they probably wouldn't be able to handle it. I'll tell you, this type of pressure is not for the faint of heart, and especially if you're not healed. That's why I didn't deal with this a year ago, 2 years ago. That's why I stuck my head in the sand a year and a half ago, because I wasn't ready to deal with this. I had to deal with all the other stuff that was going on. So yeah, I mean, so I'm kind of all over the place because I'm going to one tangent to another. But, as far as algorithms, you create your own algorithms. You really do. And you should. With my YouTube videos, I go and put in a specific search for specific stuff. And guess what comes back to me? All the stuff that I'm looking for. If I have an interest or something else, I'll put in another, string of character of words. And then guess what? New stuff comes in. My algorithms have changed because my thought process or my interest has changed. So that's up to me to go and change my own algorithms. But what happens if I don't want to change my algorithms? That's perfectly fine. I like my algorithms. If I feel the need to challenge my own algorithms, I'll do it. So I think that, when somebody has a set of algorithms, they've already considered all the alternative algorithms and they don't want to, adopt it. So guess what? They keep with the same algorithms. And you know what? That is perfectly within their right. It's not up to us to tell someone they should change their algorithms. That's why I don't do activism, because it's not up to me to shove my algorithms down their throat. And so when we say, well, you shouldn't, you should change your algorithms and all that stuff. Well, they could say the same thing to you that says that, everyone should be able to entertain alternative thought process. Well, that could be said right back at you. So when you say to somebody, well, I think you should have an alternative thought process, well, they could say, well, I think you should have an alternative thought process. So when someone could say the same thing to you that you say to them, then who's right? Not you, not them. Everybody's right, I guess. Not just one person. Which means that everybody has a right to their own algorithm. It's not up to us to shove it or make them wrong for believing in a certain way. It's up to us to create an algorithm that they can understand why they could adopt it if they're looking for that change. If they're not looking for a change, then it doesn't matter what we say. It's going to be pointless. They're going to have their own algorithm. They're going to do their own stuff. They'll be critical of my algorithm, and that's fine. I don't care what people don't agree with me, just not on my Facebook page. Don't mess with my algorithms, and don't do it illegally. Okay? So those are the two boundaries that I have, when it comes to legal matters and when it comes to messing and diluting my information because you want to force your algorithm down my throat. That ain't going to happen. Okay? So yeah, believe me, everyone that says and is critical of my echo chambers, they have their own echo chamber that they love. Believe me, it's not just me spamming them. No, we have people on my Facebook that got onto there trying to show people, hey, yeah, I got a cholesterol test with J Juice and shows that my cholesterol is down. And guess what? They blocked that person from that group. And she wasn't even being a troll. She was just saying, hey, here's some information that you might want to consider as far as how this benefit of this juice. It wasn't attacking anybody. It wasn't doing anything at all. No, she was just giving some really good information. And guess what? She was deleted. So that person who claims that I have an echo chamber has the same echo chamber that I do, just in a different, a different content or a different idea thought process. Go, all right, fine, great. But you can never say that, and be critical of somebody else's algorithm echo chambers if you're creating sustaining and maintaining your own echo chamber. Echo chambers are amazing. It's a safe place for people to have open conversation of like minds. And sometimes you might get someone that's polite, that is a naysayer, but is very polite in how in which they introduce and ask the questions. And I do entertain polite intellectual questions that doesn't come from a defensive posture, that doesn't trigger a defensive posture in me. See, when someone says to me, you know, when I get triggered and I get on a defensive posture, well, yeah, you're just reacting from trolls. You're misinterpreting what I said. No, sorry, you can't put the blame back on me, because every communicator has the opportunity to make sure the person knows exactly what they say and that you cannot misinterpret anything. And so that's probably where I was responsible for all of this controversies, because in the beginning, I didn't have all the science figured out. Now that I do, people are still reacting to what I was before. So, I mean, that's kind of biting me in the ass, but that's okay. But yeah, you know, I was not clear a year and a half ago on everything that I'm clear on today. Okay. So, you know, I take full responsibility of my communication a year ago or so, which then created all of this crazy controversy. But, you know, but it's a process that you go through. You can't, it's hindsight's 2020. Okay. So, you know, we as communicators need to be responsible for what it is that we say to make sure it lands in the world of the receiver. And if it doesn't land, why didn't it land? Oh, because you were speaking in more of a broad sense. You were leaving things open to interpretation. When you leave things open to interpretation, yeah, you don't know what the thought process of that person is. You don't want to leave anything open to interpretation. And that's where the communication gets messed up, because we leave things open to interpretation. So what I'm working on is not leaving things open to interpretation, but giving you everything, every evidence that's been substantiated with science, so that way you will not have to figure out how to interpret what it is I'm saying, because there's no way for you to know and interpret, because you'll interpret based upon your own algorithms. Okay? And so, you know, I am responsible. I am taking full responsibility for how I'm received out there. I take full responsibility for everything that I have said in the past. I get it. And not everyone's going to be forgiving. And I understand that too. But, you know, no one's going to like being called mutated. There is no other word that I could say that would exactly explain that specific word. There is no other word that I could dress up. There's no other word that would really hit home. Mutations, yes, it comes off pejorative, but it's not. It's a true science fact. Okay? There are different degrees of mutations. And so, you know, Jilly Juice will deal with the different mutations. I'm not going to say specific diseases, because that's left up for the medical holistic world to go and coin those specific diseases with their protocols. But I will say that Jilly Juice does definitely address mutations from the most benign to the most severe, and then pains involved. And then the other day, like was it April 1st, April 2nd, something like that? Yeah, I had a meltdown. Absolutely. It was a trauma coming to surface because of all of the stuff that happened last year. And then somebody triggered it, brought it to surface, but now I have the gut to now go and deal with it. So when you do get triggered now or later or anytime, that is a red flag to tell you you must deal with this situation. If not, it is going to be a continuous trigger until you deal with it. Okay? And so triggers are like symptoms. They will keep coming up until it is dealt with and put to rest within 100% of your control. Not everything is going to come out in the way that you plan or expect, But if you've done 100% within your control to deal with that trigger, then you are absolved. You're good. It'll probably not come up again. It probably won't come up again. But you have seen, so symptoms are triggers. That's what symptoms are. And if you don't deal with the symptoms in the right context, they will keep rearing their ugly heads and they will shapeshift in different ways. So yeah, you may go and deal with the symptom with cannabis or some other herb, a specific symptom, and you suppress your prostaglandin hormone and suppress your immune system and all that. But guess what? It comes back in a different way, in a different trigger, in a different symptom. And then guess what? You go take another herb or another protocol that's antibiotic and suppress that. That comes back again in a different form, in another trigger, in another symptom. And then, like I said before, you play whack-a-mole with all of your symptoms / triggers. So triggers are the body telling you that you're alive and that you need to correct an action. Okay? But people who don't understand Jilly Juice will mischaracterize my triggers, my symptoms, as me being manic or me having some mental illness, because they're working through a filter that they are dealing with. They recognize their own weaknesses in other people. And they're probably taking drugs for the things that they're accusing me of as far as acting manic or acting psychotic or schizophrenic. You see, the people that throw stones definitely have a lot of stones in their body that they're dealing with. And it's a projection of their own weaknesses. And, I understand that. But just so you understand, Jilly Juice will bring up trauma. And it will look like a sickness to the outside world, because that's what the outside world has been, that's what they know, their belief system is that when you have a symptom or a trigger, it means that you're sick and that there's something wrong with you, which is true, but it's the body trying to heal, and what you do is going to be the difference of whether or not you live or die now or later. So it's so hard to predict the future. Absolutely. So it's so hard to say, well, this is a healing symptom versus, all sickness and triggers is the body trying to heal. You can't prevent pathogens and you can't prevent healing. People try to prevent healing, but then guess what? They get another symptom, another trigger. The body's trying to heal again and telling you, hey, something wrong here. Oh no, they keep suppressing all of the symptoms and triggers until one day, guess what? They die, they're aging and they're dead. Because they kept mischaracterizing, they kept, they kept mischaracterizing those symptoms. And they used the wrong things on their symptoms. There's people right now that are watching me right now that are still in the herb world, that still are in the cannabis world, that are still in the turmeric world, in the detox world, okay, in the essential oils world. And what you're contributing to is the suppression of the prostaglandin hormone, the healing hormone. What you're doing is you are activating an immune system to create more antibodies to then cause, rapid accumulation of antibodies, and then it'll be an imbalance, and eventually it's aging and it's death. So we have a lot of people out there that are contributing to more of the mutations out there, but they say, hey, I'm trying to help humanity. No, that's the real snake oil salesman, charlatan, as people would want to call me, are those that go and promote herbs, pills, powders, and supplements, because all they are antibody acquisition protocols. It causes more imbalances. When a hospice patient, when they're faced with only two choices, antibody acquisition, so either cannabis or chemotherapy, but then they go to like the Gerson Institute and get all this fruit juice and other vegetable juice, and they're mutated, feeding the cancer. But they wouldn't qualify for that anyways, being at stage 4 hospice, or they go at home and they just die at home. Those are the only two choices in our society right now for hospice patients. It's a pretty sad state of affairs. Obviously they're not using the saline bags on these hospice patients because saline isn't strong enough to go and fix the mutations for one, but also, I mean, it's not strong enough to disperse all those antibodies, and it's not strong enough to keep the cancer at bay. If the saline bags were really that strong to do that, we wouldn't have people dying of cancer, disease, and chronic illness. So obviously the J juice has definitely a lot more components than saline bags. I mean, it has electrolytes, it has probiotics, and probiotics are anti-candida, anti-cancer, but you'll never see the industry put together candida and cancer as the same thing. Cancer is strictly for the allopathic holistic industry to then use their methods and their protocols, and it's patented. You can't use the word cancer and cure in the same sentence. Okay? So, but candida, there's all these protocols for candida, and there's candida diets and all this other stuff, but yeast, candida, and cancer are all the same stuff, but you'll never see them used in the same sentence as if they were connected, but they are. You know, cancer is a fungus, but you'll never see the American Cancer Society say that. They'll say it's cells. Well, what the hell are yeast? They're cells. But you'd have to think a little bit deeper than just a superficial, oh, I'm going to read this and just adopt this and parrot this, you know? And that's where my research comes in, because probiotics and lactobacillus is candida's mortal enemy. But if you know that candida is cancer and it's yeast and it's fungus, then that's an easy connection to make. But if you've never made that connection, then you will never, ever see that point of view that candida is cancer and it's yeast. You'll never, ever see that. But you'll see the BuzzFeed say, oh, yeah, it's false. Based upon what? I've already proven in this that yeast, I mean, where do I have it in here? I should look and see. Introduction. I know I give this to the OAG. Fungus. Chapter 11. The innate and the adaptive. Disease is not random. Protocol details. Balancing forces, body elements, role of salt. God. You know, when you write a book, you know, and you're not used to writing a book, it's a little bit hard. There's no index, I know. Having an index is difficult. Not having an index is difficult. Disease, innate and adaptive. Well, I didn't really cover the yeast. Oh, I did right in here. Leaky gut. Well, I have fungus chemicals. Okay. Science and health. Oh. Wow. Not a lot. So yeah, in this removal of pathogens, blood type, autophagy, got that, hormone disruptions, the aging process. Okay. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously some things that are not in here. I'm going to look at my third book here really quickly. Control F. I covered this a long time ago with my first book. That's like, okay, so parasites and candida are also overfed yeast. Parasites and candida, also known as overfed yeast. So that is bibliography number 23. All right, I gotta go to my bibliography here. Yeah, and the BuzzFeed articles did say that we are in an information war. I mean, I guess it is an info war. It really is. I mean, I guess that's really the right name of all this. It's information war. So 23. Yeah, disease, candidiasis. Fungal disease, candidiasis. Control click. I mean, this is something I already know, so it's so weird to go back into it and relook at some of this just stuff that I already know. All right, so candidiasis. See, this is what BuzzFeed, this is from Center for Disease Control, but BuzzFeed, Nita doesn't know her science. She's from MIT. What the hell are they turning out? Candidiasis is a fungal infection caused by yeast that belong to the genus Candida. Hello? This is for the people who don't know their science. There are over 20 species of Candida yeast that can cause infection in humans. The most common of which is Candida albicans. Okay? Now, Candida albicans is mostly in the reproductive area. That's what most women deal with, okay? So when I say that people have Candida, people are automatically thinking I'm talking about their vagina or down there. No, you have Candida, it's actually yeast, but then you have the word after it, it explains where the yeast is out of control, where it's present out of control, okay? So Candida yeast normally resides in the intestinal tract and can be found on mucous membranes and skin without causing infection. So you have yeast and it's not infected. However, overgrowth of these organisms can cause symptoms to develop. Symptoms of candidiasis vary depending on the area of the body that is infected. Okay? And so candidiasis that develops in the mouth or throat, called thrush or oropharyngeal candidiasis. Candidiasis in the vagina is commonly referred to as yeast infection or invasive candidiasis or Candida albicans. Occurs when Candida species enter the bloodstream and spread throughout the body. Okay? And then click the links below for more information on different types of Candida infections. So types of Candida is vaginal candidiasis, Candida infection of the mouth, throat, and esophagus, invasive candidiasis. Then you have global emergence of Candida auris. Candida auris is an emerging fungus that presents a serious global threat. Healthcare facilities in several countries have reported that C. auris has caused severe illness in hospitalized patients because they're so immunocompromised. C. auris is often resistant to multiple antifungal drugs. Yeah, that's what they're talking about now, is the Candida auris in hospitals. So now I'm going to go. So we know that Candida is from yeast and it's a fungus. So how do you make the connection to cancer? Cancer, fungus, PubMed. Cancer risk in patients with candidiasis. Candida albicans and cancer. Can this yeast induce cancer? Okay? I mean, this is not too hard to go and do research, but people don't do their research. And it's so obvious. Okay, so candidiasis and certain types of cancer are related to immunocompromised status. This study aimed to evaluate whether Candida infections is associated with subsequent cancer risk in Taiwan. So anyways, you can read all this stuff. I mean, I'll put it on, in the comments. But I mean, this is where Nita from BuzzFeed hasn't done her research, is making false no's. This isn't, Candida isn't cancer. Yeast isn't cancer. When yeast is out of control, it is. And so, here, I'll take this so you can see this from the CDC. Copy. And then, so, when people take information from mainstream articles and they go and then parrot it and then create their own narrative, it's like the ignorance compounds the ignorance. It's like mutating bacteria. It's like you just mutated an article to fit your agenda. Like, what the hell? So, this is why it's like these bloggers that go and try to take mainstream articles and subvert it to fit their agenda. It's like mutating viruses, and that's why we have so many damn vaccines, because people who are mutating other viruses. So journalists are actually mutating each other because they're compounding their ignorance upon each other. It's annoying. There's some good journalists out there, sort of, but I haven't found too many. I think the one that I talked to the one from Cleveland 19, when I was on TV a couple years ago or last year, it was okay. It wasn't horrible. You know, it wasn't bad, but so Candida albicans and cancer. Can this yeast induce cancer development or progression? There is currently an increasing concern about the relation between microbial infections and cancer. More and more studies support the view that there is an association above all when causal agents are bacteria and viruses. This review adds to the summarized evidence that the opportunistic fungus Candida albicans increases the risk of carcinogenesis and metastasis. Until recent years, Candida spp had fundamentally been linked to cancerous processes, as it is an opportunistic pathogen that takes advantage of the immunosuppressed state of patients, particularly due to chemotherapy. In contrast, the most recent findings demonstrate that C. albicans is capable of promoting cancer by several mechanisms, as described in the review. Production of carcinogenic byproducts, triggering inflammation, inducing a Th17 response, and molecular mimicry. We underline the need not only to control this type of infection during cancer treatment, especially given the major role of this yeast species in monosomial infection, but also to find new therapeutic approaches to avoid pro-tumor effects of this fungal species. Okay, so there is the not so many words, the Candida cancer yeast connection. But that's where you have to do digging. You have to already know your questions and already know your thesis, not say, hey, is Candida yeast and cancer the same thing? You're not going to find anything that's going to say, oh yeah, they're all the same thing. No, you have to actually go and read. Oh my God, what a freaking novel thought. People actually reading. Nobody reads. They read 2-second headlines. That's about it. Nobody actually does their research. So that's why I've done the research, and that way you can do the research too and research what I've researched to then confirm everybody's research. You know, it's geez. And so, you know, the internet is so full of good information, full of good information. Open source is amazing. And then you can draw your own conclusions, not make up stories. There are people out there that are very good storytellers. Oh my God, but then they use people and victimize people by making up stories about them. You know, if you're going to be a fiction writer, stay in the genre of fiction. Don't create your fiction as something real. But we have journalists that are going and creating fiction material and then presenting it as if it was actual nonfiction. That is a misrepresentation of so many different things. I have a friend here in Canton who published a book, a fiction book, of a girl that, you know, was victimized by some predominant figure in the area, or some prominent figure in the area. Okay, she is a fiction writer. She stayed in her world, a fiction writer. But we have people who are writing nonfiction stuff or writing fiction stuff and then portraying it as nonfiction. And that's freaking annoying. And so a reader is not going to know unless they do their research. But then we have people that don't do their research that believe everything that they read. And so that's where problems get derived from. Okay. So I should retitle this to talk about yeast and cancer and candida. Those are the three things that are connected, but each of those things have a context and even have a legal binding type of characterization of it. Cancer. Cancer is an industry term, the big C word. Cancer is an industry term used solely in the holistic and allopathic world to then have their protocols represent around that word cancer. So that's, in a way, it's like it's patented, it's like it's trademarked, I guess. I mean, that's the only way I can kind of explain how a person can use that word cancer in anything. That's why no one can really say that they have a cancer cure, because it has to fit within that very narrow context, which is biotech and the FDA. Then you have candida, which is more of the baby of the holistic industry, which then gives you another set of protocols that will then have its own context. And then you have the word yeast, which everybody has. But the Candida and the cancer are like, have their own marketing for each. So you'll never see the connection of all three of them. You'll only know how they market, how to reverse or cure them. But you won't know that they're all the same. They're all connected. And so that's why you have these mainstream journalists who are bloggers feeding off the mainstream journalists and subverting their information and then compounding the story and the line, you know, all of that. Oh my God. It's just, it's crazy. So anyways, there's my rambling for the day. My husband says to me this morning, "You're rambling." So I'm trying to tell him all this stuff that I'm doing, you know, that I did this morning. So I got up like at 4:30, completely awake. Got up at 4:30, ready to go, and all this stuff. I love it. You know, I'm very motivated. A lot of things going on. I'm very motivated and very, very excited. And, you know, when you're on J Juice, you're going to have to go through all of that healing. You're going to be looking like you're sick, but you're not sick. You're healing. Anyone that's sick is the body's trying to heal, and you're not letting it. And so everybody seems to like just misinterpret the symptoms and the triggers as something bad. No, it's something good, but you don't want to have, if you have to deal with triggers and symptoms your whole life, it means that you're not helping your body out. And if you have to suppress those symptoms with antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, taking organs out, doing all these different things, then you're actually violating the laws of your body. And then, yeah, you're going to be sustaining some pretty aggressive mutations. And then the ultimate mutation is death. That is the ultimate mutation, is death. And so it's interesting. I was remembering when I had that death threat like last November. And then I finally, you know, I filed their reports and all this stuff. And then finally, and I filed it with the police department, and filed it with the FBI. And finally the FBI got back to me. And I then went into their field office over here and talked to them. And it was like being interrogated in a lot of ways. You know, I gave them my phone, but they didn't open it up because they couldn't. It had a passcode. But I'm sure they actually were trying to look in it when they couldn't get into it. But anyways, you know, I didn't read all the articles that are out there on the internet. So I know that those field agents were probably reading all of these articles about me and how I'm killing everybody and doing this and doing that and practicing medicine without a license, and which I'm not, you know. And now as I look back on the interview, and they were just the one guy was just looking really quizzically like, who is she? And the other lady was just like, why are you doing this? And you know, you shouldn't be doing this, or, you know, you got to be careful. She was more of like the bad guy, and he was like the bad cop, and he was a good cop. But now as I look back on them, and then I'm looking at all these articles that I'm reading, I'm like, oh my God, they must think I'm just this crazy ass cult member, you know, which people still characterize me as a cult leader or something. And I'm like, far from it. I'd rather kick you all out, you know, if you're not working with me in any way, shape, or form, than bring you in, you know. And it's so obviously, but hey, you know, anyone that has a new and different thought process is in a cult. Everybody's in a cult in some sort, right? Because you have to have the right thought process and the right mindset to belong to any group. That's just a group type of thing, you know. But, you know, now that I look back on how they were looking at me and asking me the questions, they're just like, we're just so curious about. I'm like, I feel like I'm being interrogated here, right? And they're like, no, we're just curious about you. We're like, who are you? Like, and I showed them my book and everything, and I showed them I'm not a doctor. There's nothing on here that says I'm a doctor, you know. And I say nothing. I mean, this is like, the protocol isn't FDA approved, you know. The protocol recipe has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The protocol is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure or prevent any disease. Consult your physician before beginning any program. The testimonials, statements, and opinions presented are applicable to the individual depicted and their perception of positive results achieved through using the protocol and juice outlined in this book These testimonials are voluntarily provided, are not paid, nor were the contributors provided with any free products, services, or other benefits in exchange. So it's like, I've pretty much put out all the disclaimers, so I've never misrepresented myself. Always been pretty much honest. And even Jeff Holiday said that, my obsessive nature around the details is rather alarming to him. But you got to be very obsessive about the details, because there's so many different people are going to be looking at this coming from so many different perspectives. You have to speak to so many different listenings. So yes, you have to be obsessive in nature with this. You've got to be. You can't afford not to be. Okay? So, so now is a time for me to address the naysayers in a constructive manner. It's time for me to address and rip apart these articles that are purposely mischaracterizing scenarios and events, so that way, to line their own pockets and then to grab market share yet again. So it's like, I have to go and defend myself. But you'll still get good information if you read between the lines, but not even read between the lines. I don't know what else, I guess, anything new that I can say, which, if I think about anything new, I'll say it. But I think I've pretty much covered it all for the most part, but I don't know. There's always something new on the horizon. You never know until it comes up. So anyways, that's all. I've been rambling. That's it. I'm going to go do my work, but I just wanted to address all of you and say hello and happy Friday. And just, do the JJ's. Thank you for some of the book purchases that happened the last couple days. Just get on the protocol. Don't take anything for free off the net, because you don't know what they did to it. And really, when you pirate any material, you do take away from the artist. And I know everyone loves everything for free, but I do give a lot of information free on the internet. $9 or Amazon, $8.60. That's nothing. That's pennies on the dollar. $9 for the ebook through Lulu. $19.95 through my Lulu Publishing. So you guys are all getting a deal with this book. So this book has basically been for free for the most part. Okay? But here's the thing. The next book that we're putting out there, it's not going to be an ebook. It's only going to be sold through Lulu. It will not be through Amazon. It will not be through Barnes & Noble. It will not be through anything but Lulu. And it's going to be non-return. You cannot return the book at all. And it's going to be a powerhouse book. You're going to see all of Kevin's amazing writing and all of his revelations. You're going to see all the new revelations I have since Dr. Phil, or since a little bit after Dr. Phil. Because even with this, I have a lot more revelations. Other than this was just covering the surface to kind of give people an idea what it is that is possible based upon their situation. But you're going to get in the next book so much more detail to then really explain how everything is truly connected. The thing with reproduction, the thing with the RH and all of that. I mean, it's just so much that I've uncovered the last couple, the autophagy and the 3 things that kill you, hormones, candida or yeast, and then antibodies. Okay. So, I'm not going to make it easy for the people who love to pirate and do things illegally. There are people out there that claim to be so good. Oh, I'm a proponent for children. I'm so legal. I'm so good. And they procure pirated information and they put it on their website. Like, how stupid can you be? But there are people that do that. So really, truly, understand that the artist does work hard. Don't take away from the artist because you want something for free. Nothing is really for free in life. I mean, we all have to pay something. We have to earn our way into life. Nothing is for free. Though people like to think everything's for free, and that's called parasites. Parasites live off a host. They like everything for free. Don't be a parasite. Earn your way in this world. Because when you're off the grid, away from society, you're going to have to go and make your own house. You have to go and cut your own, or get your own food. You're going to have to grow your own vegetables. You're going to have to make your own tools. So either way, for you to play, you got to pay. But our society makes things a little bit easier. But don't be unethical and procure pirated material. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.